Hello there, welcome to lesson number 2 in our series on creating bracelets using FluidDesigner for 3D printing. Today's lesson we're going to show you how you can use a Bezier curve and a Bezier circle to make a bracelet. So if you start FluidDesigner, your opening screen should look something like this. We want to go to Learning Projects, and we're doing bracelets, so it's Jewellery Projects Bracelets. We're doing lesson number 2. So if you drag and drop O2 onto the workspace, this is the object that we're going to create in today's lesson, and we're going to do it using this Bezier curve, that's this blue line on the side, which is connected for you to this Bezier circle. First thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to switch on screencast keys, so any key presses I make should be displayed in the panel here, and remind you that in the help window are all the instructions to do this particular exercise. We will be doing it slightly different from the instructions in the panel here, but you know, the end result will be the same. So I'm just going to shut that down a little bit. So this blue line on the left hand corner here is actually a Bezier curve, so that's this object here. The main body of the object is a Bezier circle, and we've automatically linked them together for you so that you can just drag the control points and change the shape of the object quickly and easily. So we've built in that functionality for you. So we want to try and recreate this object here. So if we look at it at the moment, the height is, well, it's about, if I just zoom in, you can see that that's that's about 2.5 centimeters up from the middle, 2.5 centimeters down, so it's about 5 centimeters or 50 millimeters in total in that direction. So you could modify this, dragging it down to about there, so that's 25 millimeters, 2.5 centimeters up, and you could drag this one up as well there. That will give you approximate position. But what you can also do with these control points is, if you look in the transform panel over here, this Y value is 24.5682 millimeters at the moment. If you want this accurate, you can type in 25 mm for millimeters, and that will give you exactly 25 millimeters vertically. And similarly, if we select the one at the bottom, you can see it's minus 24. The red line is the origin line, if you like. So when we're going down, it's minus. So you do need to make sure you put the minus in front of 25 millimeters. Minus 25 millimeters. That will locate it exactly at that point there. So that gives us our height of this object. What we need to do now is to have a look at how wide is this. Well, here's the let's see, where's the center? How wide is it? Let's have a look. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So 40 millimeters plus a little bit. So we're just over 40 millimeters wide. So the blue line, the blue vertical line here is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 40 millimeters and 40 millimeters. That's about 80 millimeters out at the moment. We only want to be about 20, just over 20. So instead of this X value of minus 40, if we actually type minus 20, oops, I didn't type the mm, minus 20 mm for millimeters, that will give me the approximate width of this. And similarly for this value down here, X is at minus 40, so I want minus 20 mm there. So that gives me a width of about just over 40 at the moment, because the control point is not quite at the edge of the object in this instance. So now what I want to do is I want to drag this in a little bit and just modify it until it looks something like this sort of profile. So you can drag these values, or you can type in exact values at these points. I'm going to change that. I do want to set this back at this Y value here back at 0, so that this control point is along the horizontal, the X-axis, the blue line, and I'm going to set this at minus 30 just to, whoops, I forgot the 30 millimeters again, minus 30 mm, minus 30 millimeters. So that just gives it an exact value. You don't have to do that, of course, unless you're doing something like a ring where you do really need to focus on exact sizes. So once you're happy with this profile, we're in edit mode at the moment. When we can select control points on this Bezier curve, we're in edit mode, and it tells you that at the top. So if we press the tab key on the keyboard, that will take us out of edit mode. And what we can then do is highlight the main body of this object that's going to be our bracelet, and we need to now convert it from a curve. Remember, I told you that this is a curve, a Bezier circle, sorry, and Bezier circle curve. So what we need to do is we need to change that Bezier curve into a mesh, and we do that in FluidDesigner by going to Tools, Object Tools, and convert it to a mesh. So we've converted the curve into a mesh, and you can see that the color changes. If we actually click on the Bezier curve on the side there and press the tab key to go back into edit mode, you'll notice this has got no effect now on our bracelet object. They are now detached. This is a mesh now. So if we just press tab to come out of edit mode, we don't need this object anymore, this Bezier curve. So with it highlighted, we can press X on the keyboard and we can delete it. Now what we want to do now is to add in some holes into this object, and I'm just going to scroll the center mouse button and zoom in. And again, in order to edit this, we need to go into edit mode, so we press the tab key on the keyboard. Now at the moment you can see lots of dots around the object, and we can highlight those dots, and those dots are referred to as vertices. If I click the right mouse button, what's happening at the moment, we are in selection mode, vertex select. So when you can click on the dots, you're in vertex select mode. We want to change to face select mode, and when we change to face select mode, you can see we can highlight faces now rather than the dots in the corner. And what we want to do is we want to delete a selection of faces in order to give some these holes in the finished bracelet. So if we highlight that face there, for example, to delete an object in FluidDesigner, we press the X key on the keyboard, and I can delete a face. Now it doesn't delete it, it doesn't look like it's deleted it at the moment, but what's actually happening is that there is a face on the back side of this object, on the rear of this object. I'll just hold down the center mouse button and rock the mouse. You can see we have got a hole here where we've just deleted a face, but we've got another face at the back, and we want to delete the back face as well. So if I just go to View and Front, that face on the back is currently highlighted, so I can press X to delete, and I can delete that face. Now you can see right through the object, because we've actually got two faces deleted. We've got two holes in the object. So if I go to View and Front, so I can do that with the next face, highlight it, press X to delete, and delete the face. Highlight again the one in the background, X to delete, and face. Now this is a bit of a slow way of doing it. If we want to select multiple faces at the same time, what we have to do is hold down the Shift key first, and then we can select a number of faces at the same time. And you do need to be clear on which ones you're going to select. So I'm going to select a pattern of faces there on either side of the center line. Once you're happy with the ones you've selected, press X to delete, and you can delete multiple faces at the same time. Now we still need to delete the copies of these faces on the back of the object, so highlight them again. Holding down the Shift key, we can highlight a number of faces. Once you're happy with the ones you've selected, press X to delete and delete the faces. So there we are, we've created some holes on the front and the back of this object. Not all the way around, but we just want to introduce some sort of pattern to this. Now once you're happy with that, and you you're happy with the faces that you've deleted, you're happy with the style of it, you can come out of edit mode by pressing the tab key on the keyboard. Now this object at the moment, although it's a mesh, it is in fact still just a shell. It's got no thickness. If you look at the finished object, it's got some thickness to it. This hasn't. This is just a shell at the moment. So we need to add some thickness to our object, and we can do that in FluidDesigner. In the Properties panel, we need to click on the spanner, which is the modifiers icon, and we need to add a modifier called a Solidify modifier. And if I just open up this window, you can see that Solidify modifier, we can change the thickness of this shell. So I'm going to add a thickness of 2 millimeters to this shell. So as you can see, as I increase this, the thickness changes. Okay, so I'm going to apply a thickness of 2 millimeters, and once you're happy with that thickness, what you can do is, again, you need to go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert it to a mesh. And when we do that, the Modifiers panel features disappear. That means that you've confirmed the changes made to this mesh. Okay, so I can close that panel down now. Now the one last thing that I need to do is I need to make sure that the internal diameter of this object is a suitable size for a bracelet. So if I knew that I wanted an internal diameter of, let's say, 40 millimeters, one way of doing this, I do need to open up the Properties panel again. One way of doing this and making sure that this is 40 millimeters is we could add a cylinder, and it's a very small object in the center there at the moment. If I go to main information, it's only 2 millimeters at the moment, but if I change that to 40 mm for millimeters and 40 mm for millimeters, and I'm just going to drag the mouse along here just to give me some height. What I want to do is I want to resize this bracelet so it just fits around this 40 millimeter diameter cylinder. And the way to do that is if we go to View and view it from the top, and if we just zoom in. Now at the moment the cylinder is highlighted, so what I need to do is to highlight the bracelet. So the Bezier circle, it says here, that's the bracelet. And if I point the mouse at the center, I want to scale this object up now. I want to make it slightly bigger, so I press the S key on the keyboard to scale. And if I just move the mouse slightly, you can see I'm changing the internal diameter of the object, and I want to just sit outside, not quite getting it, just sit outside that Bezier circle. There we are, that'll do. So just play around until you get it fitting just outside. So what that's saying is that the internal diameter now of my bracelet is 40 millimeters, like this cylinder is 40 millimeters, and that's what I want. Now, before we do anything else, what we always need to do in FluidDesigner is when we scale an object, we always need to go to Control A, and apply the scale and reset the scale back to a scale factor of 1. That's just a feature that we always have to do in FluidDesigner. So now I need to delete this cylinder. We don't want to be printing that. So highlight it and press X and delete it. We don't need the original. Bracelet, so we can highlight that and press X and delete that. So there's our bracelet now. What we need to do is to save it, and as usual in FluidDesigner, we go to File and Save As. And just click on to go up the menu system and look for My Projects, Jewellery Projects, Bracelets, and we can save Lesson 02 as a patterned bracelet, and we can save that as a Blender file. And you can't print Blender files, so you've always got to go to File and Export, and export it in a suitable printable format, and we use Wavefront OBJ format, and we like to save this to the desktop. Because the next thing, the final thing you've got to do is to start the application called NetFab Basic, which you can download free from the internet. And if you go to Project and Open and go to the desktop, you can open the pattern bracelet and you can see whether or not it's a printable mesh. And we always recommend when when using FluidDesigner that you always go to Netfab Basic and you always run through the following procedure, which is to go to Extras and repair the part. And what Netfab will do is triangulate the mesh, and if I just move Netfab across and just click on Update, you can see we haven't got any problems with this mesh. We've got no border edge problems, no orientation, no holes, but we would still always recommend you run automatic repair and execute it, and that you there's still no problems, still zeros when we click Update, and click Apply the repair and remove the old part. That object now should be in a printable file format, and so all you need to do is to go to Part, export it as a wavefront object again, save it to the desktop, and Netfab will add the little bit of text repaired to it. So the repaired OBJ file, that's the printable file. Thank you, that's the end of this lesson.